Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and of course, all of you are the co hosts on this channel. Now, this week, we're going to talk about a safe, a subject matter in which all of us agree on the same things. There will be absolutely zero controversy, no flame wars, anything like that. Yeah, we're going to talk about gender politics. And here today on this gender political thing. Hey guys, what's going on there? Good morning, good morning. Oh, we are going to use, I like to take things that we come, that are in our public eye and use them as fuel for our tabletop role playing games. And oftentimes, I I don't like to fight the draw when something creative comes about. And I initially wanted to do, and probably will do a whole series on the idea of alignment and Planescape and uh, now fifth edition and things like that. Yeah, ways like lights the flamethrower. Yeah, and but just to let everyone know straight up front, this channel is all about we are a glass half full channel. We're not about blasting anyone, foul language, your particular agendas. What we're here for is creativity, positivity, and embracing the things that it's essentially might make you a little bit uncomfortable, but in the end, we grow better from it. So those who want to have the platform of arguing about real world gender politics, you're not going to find that here. I want to literally talk about the actual concepts of gender and politics and use that as fuel for our role playing games. For example, in today being Monster Monday, we're going to talk about classic monsters that are fit into specific gender roles and how we can kind of exploit that and flip the script on it, break expectations and things. Of course, we have lots and lots of monsters and adversaries in mythology. We also have very classic fantasy, real world, and then their fantasy equivalents of people who are put in positions that fall into specific genders, and how I'm going to bring up this word all week long, and it's going to be called catharsis, in the sense of both establishing a thing in a world, which, let's be frank, a lot of this stuff can be pretty. What are some nice words, or maybe not so nice words? That words like stereotypes and slavery and torture and things are oftentimes violence and people being judged and having prejudice against people are things that are included in a lot of role playing games. But we also should have the opportunity to, punch those assholes in the throat, for lack of a better term. And so I'm not against including those things in role playing games. I think the balance to that is allowing our player characters to to be able to grow and expand and to exalt in the game, to feel the catharsis of fighting against the oppressive nature of political regimes that might try to enforce those kind of rules in the game, not just have it there. You want, hey Vince, what's going on? Yeah, yeah. Wayne gets it. He's like, so Fabio as the Medusa, got it exactly, exactly. All right, so here's the rule. We are going to talk about um, we're going to talk about classic, well, gendered monsters and adversaries that we have in our games. Some of the classic things, the ones that come to my mind are all of the hags, Medusa, sirens, and harpies kind of come to mind as well. I suppose a sphinx ish monster, but there's some that they generally the succubus generally fall into the female category. There are lots of man-eating monsters that also fall into like the male category. Most of them tend to be pretty far more fall into the like the violent side. And then lastly, We can talk about, well, non-gendered monsters to begin with. And there's an old movie called Enemy Mine. And in Enemy Mine, there was, the humans against the reptilian aliens or something. And in that movie, our main character, who they kind of disrupt expectations, because the we know there's a male actor playing the lizard-like alien, and we know that they're going to war, but then the alien goes to a period of time in which they start to um, they are self-impregnated, or you get the idea that maybe that's the case. And of course the hero starts to befriend um, our lizard-like friend, and then they have a small child because they're left on this alien planet, and then you realize that there's more to it than a little bit. So getting the chat, um, dead man who's being sarcastic with me. It's like, now you're getting into gender politics in D&D. Next you'll be playing Eclipse Phase. Yeah, because yes. Because yes. Um I think, hey Wayne, I think I remember Sphinx. Well, maybe it's not Sphinx. I remember a female, the head and chest of a female with a griffin-like body, and there's an image in my head of like a statue or something, and I was thinking of the Sphinx, but I don't know. Mm, yeah, I can't remember. But okay, all right. So let's talk about some other standards, because we talk about the gender part a little bit here. Yeah, the Gyno Sphinx is, there's Androsphinx and Gynosphinx. I can't remember all the Sphinx likes. I think there's two or three that are common, and there's a bunch that were made up later on in the history of Dungeons and Dragons. But the first, let's talk a little bit about the political part of this, and what I mean about not the political. I mean, what I mean about not using real world politics. We're not getting into that part, but we know in fantasy, lots of novels, books, intellectual properties, maybe not so much in our role playing games, but power and authority, even arcane power and such, has been in general relegated in many of these stories to, well, one specific gender. The Dune comes to mind when it comes about that. The Bene Gesserit, that's how I pronounce it. Yeah, Vince is saying that not really. The ancient Sphinx seems to at least have a female head, and um, many times, many times in our fantasy imagery, let's say, because we're not going to argue specifics here. That's so I'm going to ignore all of the well actualisms, but we can argue all of that as much as we want. But in game and in world, when people perceive a thing, then the perception becomes the reality. For example, we may have a class of wizards, and all of the wizards are male. You just cannot graduate into the school, and then we start to break those expectations. For example, even in Dune, the Bene Gesserit, they're all female. That's it. There's never been a male member, and of course, our main character is a born male, and you realize that there's been a process of this culture to ensure that they've always been female. This wasn't just an accident. This was actually on purpose. Yeah. See, yeah. See, you guys are, and I appreciate your studies, but you guys are actually falling into, well, actualism, and the idea there is, um, if we look hard enough at something, we're going to find what we're looking for. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I think we should talk about all week long, in terms of you know all barbarians male, all oracles female, all I don't know, harpies female, all ogres male. And it's possible that that on the surface people may perceive these things and find out that that is the case. Player characters go to a valley, they find another city. All the leadership, yep, fall into the fall into well actualism, and that's my point, right? It's like my point in subtly in the show from years ago till now is that it's very easy for us to fall into like, well, anecdotally or historically, or this is the thing I know, so this is true. The point of it is, well, maybe it's not. And are we, are we brilliant enough? Are we adult enough to go, you know what? Does it really matter? And maybe there's someone that knows just a little bit more than we do. And even if we don't, maybe the point of it is that we don't need to worry about that point. You know what I mean? Vince says gender can actually be an interesting aspect in games, even though we tried to make them equal in RPGs for decades now. Can you guys remember games where male and female characters were different? There during the AD&D period, they had different specific stats for male and female, and male and female characters, whether it was through age and height and weight and actual even statistics, right? And I'll put the comment back up there again. Now, the I'm going to go back to my word catharsis again. I understand there's this like very little boy me getting the gender right, little boy pouty thing that's like, well, it doesn't make sense for a female character to have like an 18 strength or whatever, and I point you to, I don't know, Google and YouTube, that it does make actually perfect sense, and that there are games where in the old days where your gender specified basically how good your character could be. I don't approve of that at all. It's pretty stupid. If you're that's almost like telling somebody else in their fantasy that they have to have limitations. You're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Now the world, on the other hand, the world may have those expectations. For example, in a world where the men go to war and the women stay home, and you have a female character that's in the story, then people may look at them as strange, like, who are you and what are you doing and why aren't you, barefoot and pregnant back home, making a pie, right? And the point of having those things is to have a world in which we as player characters can confront them. And in fiction, it's done plenty of times. It's done all the time. It's very easy, using gender to separate power dynamics and responsibility, whether you have a matriarchal society like in the Dark Elves and the Drow, or you have a very patriarchal society and you have classes of people. And then of course, these games didn't really even embrace the idea of gender fluidity. But I've often thought that like lizard folk and dragonborn could very easily fit into gender fluidity. I think it's kind of strange to see, for me to see, as an old grognard, to see, I don't know, male and or female dragonborn. It's like, unless they are fitting into a society, which actually makes a lot of sense for a non-gender specified race that doesn't fit into humanoid specific gender roles, trying to dress and act in a particular way because of what other people perceive them to be. uh pretty funny. Vince mentions, well, in fiction it makes sense, but in real life you just have to look at the controversy of transgender fighting females and almost killing them. Yeah, yeah. Now you know what? Because this would be perfect for Future Friday, but I'll make a mention of it. There is, we may get to the point in our own society where we start to have genetic Olympics as opposed to yeah, Vince. Yeah, well, yeah, lizard cleavage. Yeah, yeah. I was wondering, like, wait, what? But okay, um, gender, genetic Olympics. What I mean by that is that there is a we already have classifications for various sports based on genetics, meaning like in boxing we use weight and we use arm length for to describe differences. We also have different categories for lots of other physical sports based on age, or we have it based on, I want to call it capability, meaning like everyone everyone who fits within a specific, say, speed or endurance or um, jumping distance category all compete together because of having similar physical statistics, and then they are ranked. So you have like heavyweight, I'm using boxing again, so you have heavyweight boxers, they all have a similar maybe height, weight, reach level. They use weight for the most part, and then you have different categories that way. So in the future, for example, when no one's going to like what I'm about to say about the differences in gender in sports, but I guess an argument could be made like me. I've been raised on testosterone, and if I could genetically have my genetic levels measured against other people of the similar category, then male and female wouldn't matter. You would just have the genetic Olympics, right? Everyone who fits in to this specific, um, testosteronic level all compete together. Then this other testosteronic level versus this other estrogenic level, and it wouldn't matter. Then you wouldn't even have to worry about gender at all. You know, yeah, I do like your comment about the lizard cleavage. Vince says, "Yeah, I love that comment I read recently. Just make another Olympics where everything is allowed: drugs, implants, etc. See what humans are really capable of." Yeah, yeah. There's been that argument, like if it, it, how different would it be for, say, a small child to have, I don't know, I can't think of any other drug injection other than testosterone and estrogen, but using that so I have to go down this bad path, but as an example, but you're either born with it or you could have been injected with it since birth. Which one is correct, right? Some could make the argument about something like, someone being very tall, being very good at basketball. Is that fair for people who are short like myself? And well, whatever. Vince goes on to say, so you could actually make different categories based on genetic makeup and implants instead of gender. Exactly. And also, here's another thing: you could just make it based on capability. So what I mean by that is that we do have other athletic, let's because we're talking about physical capabilities. We do have standards where we measure how okay. I'm trying to think of the specified thing here. So for example, if we do measure who's the best at long jumping, we do measure who's the fastest at running, but we do have different types of jumping, running, lifting categories, right? We have like sprint, and then we have, long distance running, and then we have marathons. The same could go for a genetic Olympics as well, meaning like meaning we are going to find out how fast you can run, and everyone within 1/10 of a speed of this category are all going to compete together versus maybe the quote unquote slower people are all going to run together at this other speed. Now you might say to yourself, well, why would anybody want to watch the slower category runners? But the same could be said for boxing. You have heavyweight boxers, and then you have welterweight, and you have flyweight. Why would you want to watch boxing match with people who are smaller and shorter and lighter weight than heavyweight? It's because you get to see people compete on an equal playing field. In other words, you test each person's capability. You put all the people with the same capabilities together. You know, it would be like watching. You could have basketball where no one's above 5'7" tall. you know, and that would be their category rather than male or female or something. I think we just need to think outside the box. Dead Man says the groom man mom from second edition AD&D Spelljammer had a huge swing in stats. Male were +2 strength, dex, and con, and females were +2 intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. I don't remember the Gromam from second edition, but yeah, there are plenty of monsters that are like the males are almost, they're almost completely different than the female. Um, it's pretty strange. Now, of course, we have where there's even been. I remember some science fiction. There's been things where you only see the men because the females are like, they literally are like a completely different, almost a completely different species. They may not even have arms or be humanoid or something. I don't know where I remember reading that or seeing that, but I do remember like someone was like the male characters, like the females in our characters are like snails to your humans or something. It was something weird like that. And I was like, what? But that actually is kind of funny too. Also, we've even had, there have been uh, fantasy that's made fun of it. We're talking about dwarves, and you can't tell the difference between a male and female dwarves and whatnot. I hear you, Vince. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. Now, we one of the things that I think we can really flip expectations on, of course, are some of our classic. They tend to be more classically. A lot of the female mythological monsters tends to have a lot of interaction with our heroes when it comes to like seduction and carousing and illusions and things. I'm looking at you, Medusa and Hag and Siren and Harpy and whatnot. And oftentimes, while it's very easy to make those characters male, a lot of times we just default to the female version of them. And I understand where people can look at a book and go like, eye roll, why are the seducers always the female? Now it could be like we could build this into our world that, well, maybe that's because those entities find out that society itself is very easily manipulated due to affecting the sexuality or whatnot, and then maybe they come across the player characters and our bad guys come across a society where it doesn't have that much of an effect, and we do have male Medusas, and of course I'm. Many people were like, well, like the comment earlier by Wayne, they're like, so Fabio, I get it. Like, well, yeah, why not? Or classic Medusa with the lizard like body and whatnot, and a guy with like long snakes for their hair. I've got the predator locks. I don't mind. What? Let's be fair about it. And of course, gender really has zero importance in it in terms of the monsters' capabilities. They might operate differently in a society, but we know what a male succubus is, and it's called an incubus, or rather a succubus is a shape changer, in which case it really wouldn't matter. But a hag is very easily your classic warlock, not the warlock character class, but classic warlock hiding out in the swamp and whatnot. So yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. DBJ Medusa fan art, make it happen. Somebody has had to have done it. Somebody has had to have done it. Anyway, getting back to our co-host, Wayne says, if reality is given a nod in your campaign, then differences would be used. Races also. Now let's talk marauding band of female pirate hill giants. Hells yes. Yeah, but also I think we tend to be a little bit more brilliant than we want to be in role-playing games, because the whole point of having a rule is that there's always an exception to the rule, and there are times where we get what's the comment? There's the astronaut problem, and the astronaut problem for me is that when we encounter people who are different than us, they themselves might be the exception to the rule anyway. right? Like our first impression when we see new people, our heroes travel to a distant island, they go to another dimension, they travel over the hillside or the mountain range to meet these new people. The people that they yeah, oh definitely a check DeviantArt. Oh yeah. Lots of art and lots of deviants. But when our players encounter new people, like astronauts going to another world, astronauts may not represent the entirety of our human existence. They are astronauts. They are the exception, and so the players may meet these other people, and yeah, oh, yeah, that man, yeah. You can go down a rabbit hole on DeviantArt, and what's the other one? ArtStation, with a lot of concept art. Oh God, I love those. I love this. Vince says, I try to use about a 50% spread of male or female NPCs or enemies in my game. So if I introduce a group, I randomly choose who is male and female and how that would change the group dynamics. And again, I'm not claiming, again, we're not making a value judgment over like what gender or non-gender or fluid gender in the middle is more important than the other one. I'm saying that there's space for stories to be told. It very well may be, and mind you, these gender specified roles in a society might be extremely temporary. Like, for example, if a city state just got over, I don't know, there were shape changers in the city, and they all took over the daughters of the nobility. The population might be pissed off at and suspicious of all new visiting females, right? And the players may not understand why, but maybe in the history of this particular city state, there was a concerted effort by enemies to infiltrate, and they infiltrated through quote unquote the weaker members of the society. No one's going to suspect the princesses and the daughters, the third born daughters. No one's going to bother looking at them. And so the doppelgangers moved in, and then all of a sudden now everybody's got this opinion. But again, I got to go back to the word catharsis. We know there's assholes out there that would use the opportunity, like, well, DBJ is saying that of course if someone's going to play a female character, I can just use and abuse them. And no, I'm saying that a society might abuse an individual, let's say the females, and be thought of as second class. And now's the opportunity for the players to come in and like and bust that society wide open. Now it could also be the opposite, where this society does exist, and then a neighboring community is like, we don't agree with anything that they're doing over there. As a matter of fact, we heard that they had I don't know, there was an Invasion of the Body Snatchers event that happened over there, so we don't even deal with them anymore. Again, hell, the classic origin society of the Drow, which has changed their I don't want to say they're retconning, they're expanding the origins of the end society of dark elves down in the Underdark, and that's a big thing too now. So I know some people are probably like pouting and folding their arms, like, I don't understand, but whatever. People get butt hurt. It's so weird. Vince says, ideally, you should use a random generator. You could even include rates of transgender or homosexuality in it. Hell yeah. If you were trying to do a social sandbox, that could be super interesting. Exactly. As a matter of fact, and mind you, we also have to understand that gender comes in like three general categories. So how are you physically represented? What is your um, how is the character physically represented? Meaning, like, on the outside, what kind of specified or fluid gender do they look like? And then also that NPC, how do they themselves identify themselves, even if they look, no matter what they look like on the outside? And then what is their physical attraction to others of a particular gender as well. So so it kind of mixes in there. Like, for you could very well, we've seen the classic story of the one gendered person dressing as the other gendered person to hide in the society. And we've seen a lot of comedy movies, and there's like Shakespeare's. plays and things like that, and that could be pretty interesting as well. Wayne says, now I'm thinking of a humorous adventure in a kingdom ruled by the drag queen. Noble yet extremely eccentric, vain but strong of will. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many ways to play with it. Like, for example, who's to say that there isn't a uh, going with the sarcastic drag queen, but maybe, just maybe, someone is so vain that they expect others to look and dress and act just like them. And how often have we seen people today see someone rich and or famous and influential and everyone wants to dress just like them? Yeah, yeah, Wayne. Yeah, Wesley Snipes in yeah, character from Tu Wong Fu. Yep, absolutely. And now, mind you, maybe the players are having some fun and they have to dress up in a certain way because this this individual expects their entourage, their sycophants, to dress and act a certain way. Or it could be maybe this dominant figure isn't expecting it, but everyone wants political power, and we always have a society of kiss asses, and they're just like, oh, I've always worn, long multicolored dresses and done makeup and things, and remember, um, yeah, let's do the title work again. Yeah, exactly, right. I suppose our fear would be of offending people who live this life, you know. Um, Although you really can't control what people do at their own gaming table, but whatnot. Vince says that sounds super fun, especially if it's not a cliche evil queen, but rather a complex character. Exactly, exactly. I mean, even in bringing up Game of Thrones, because I always seem to bring up Game of Thrones again. We do have a female character who pretends to be a knight, and everyone's just like, I don't think so, until she until she turns on her badassery and starts beating ass, and everyone's like, "Ooh, maybe I shouldn't have said that to your face." Yeah, yep. Like Wayne says, yep, exactly. The savior and guiding light of the kingdom. Yep. Vince is, yes, just Google Tu Wong food. I've seen everything. Yeah, Wesley Snipes and Patrick Swayze and oh shit, oh, what was the third actor? Oh, who surprisingly looked real good. I mean, real good. I was like, what? You should dress and drag more often. Which also there could be many uh, factions that, or like for example, warlock or cleric factions where oh man, there's so many fun things I think that we could pull from. All right, so getting back to monsters and adversaries and whatnot, um, a good twist on getting around a big bad guy might be the expectation that the maybe the bad guy has a particular prejudice, and hey, female characters are dangerous, and they're female characters are illusionists and wizards, and I'm scared you're not going to affect my mind. And the barbarian chick in the group is like, yeah, you better step down or I'm going to use magic on your mind. Right? And they might be thinking like the male characters are just brutes, and the male wizard character is like, can I borrow your long sword? I'm going to have to pretend to be the warrior in the group. Right? There are ways to have fun and to break the expectations. And I think some of it can be humorous and joyful. Others might be strange, and whatnot. As a matter of fact, even imagine like a cleric that worships a god, and over time, or maybe even when they channel, in game or out of, narratively or mechanically, they channel the spirit of the god or goddess that they worship, or gods or goddesses that they worship, that they have a physical transformation into, or as close to the gender of the one that they worship. Vince is like Sailor Moon. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Going back up in the chat, our co-host Vince is like, well, it would be fun having one of those Asian drag queens where you honestly could not tell the normal gender anymore. There are all male schools with female beauty contestants. Exactly. And as much as yep, just like sorry, go to the chat again. Yeah, Deadman says like in the story of Mulan. Absolutely. We've seen that story played out many times. And maybe there's an opportunity to include that in the game. Like for example, the PCs, you know, a great noble is like, find my daughter. Okay, where is she? You end up finding out that she's dressed as a soldier, went off to war to go beat some ass. PC's got to go find her, but the other soldiers won't approve of her being there, or you know, so on and so forth. Right? There are stories we can tell. I think there's some great story elements and hooks that we can tell in our stories just based on just a little tweaking of the genders and whatnot. I agree with Vince about having a random a random sliding gender category if you just want to have some random NPCs. They don't. Sometimes we fall into we guys fall into a sausage party kind of thing, and maybe we need to break that a little bit. Also, there is listen. We don't like to admit it. Let us guys talk a little bit here in the corner. We don't like to admit it, but throughout history, even to present day, there's a whole lot of non-masculine activities really beefy male dudes like to engage in. Um, there's a whole lot of ass grabbing in sports. There's a ton of like crotch and ass grabbing in sports. Just like to me, it's a little bit. It even makes me uncomfortable from the amount of inappropriately grabbing of asses. Right now, I know there's some guys that are like, well, I like ladies volleyball as much as the next one. I'm like, yeah, sure, but have you really taken a look at like rugby and American football and soccer? So I mean, they like to come up and baseball. They do a lot of that. And remember, there was a period of time where men wore pantyhose and makeup and wigs and whatnot. So while there might be some players out there that are like, I'm not, you know. I'm gonna make fun of you for playing a female character. It's like maybe what your character's wearing in this society is not too bad, but in another society, you're viewed as something different. Um, y- you know, I can't even think of the clothing style. It's the one with it's the not necessarily a kilt, but it's like it's the long robish type of body wear. I can't think of the fashion style. I don't know anything about history. I'm an armchair stupid, but you get my point. Vince says the hard thing as a GM is making gender relevant, but not oppressive in your game. Yeah, it's a slippery slope. It can be, especially if we're immature and we're children about that thing. But absolutely, I think one way there are two ways to go about it. One is just making it just normalizing it. Just when the when the PCs meet an NPC and you want to disrupt the separate categories, then consciously create people of different genders so that when your player characters keep meeting a person in the beginning, they're going to be like a little flustered, like they don't know how to react. But if you just normalize it, then it'll just be another normal thing. The only difference between our modern day and the ancient past is that maybe people didn't or did not have categories for such a thing, right? Or there were people hiding the gender that they were or pretending to be a specific gender when they really weren't, which is more normal than a little bit. Kylie's like, oh no, I'm late to this one. Anyway, Deadman says in second edition AD&D had a write-up on gender in the DMG that basically said ignore it outside of social situations. I don't remember that, but I Yes. Yes. And even in social situations, I think there needs to be enough variety so that if the players go over, go to the mountain pass kingdom, that they see one type of situation, and then when they leave, they see something else. Yep. Uh, Vince says that Olympic Village gives out condoms for free. Yeah, because listen, the Olymp there's a bunch of hard body people, all of them with their with a lot of energy, and many of them are young, and yeah, all of them looking good. Yeah, yeah. Hell, I bet that same thing happens here in Columbus, Ohio during the Arnold Fest. I bet the same thing happens here. Wayne says a kabuki theater style civilization. Ooh, Sergeant Kabukiman NYPD. How man butts pats happen during an NFL. Yeah, yeah. How man butts happen during an NFL game. I don't. You would just lose count on the number of times people get their ass patted in an NFL game. It's you know what I mean. Hey Kylie, what's going on? Like I'm late for this one. Yeah, we're having a little fun, but really, what I really want to do is just break the stigma, just have different expectations of where genders fall, and if we're going to use stratified, strict genders in our games, to allow the opportunity to, of course, break those things. And what I really love to do is have a panel of a ton of like my favorite brilliant pronies on the show and talk about ways in which we could embrace the old by transitioning to the new without ignoring the past, even the problematic parts of it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I that's the best way I can say it. Anyway, Vince says in the Dark Eye, there are regions where it's simply defined that it will be hard for female adventurers because they are very sexist, mostly rural regions. Again, I don't have a problem with someone inserting that into a setting as long as there is an equal and opposite opportunity for those same individuals to exalt in the game, to have that catharsis in the game. I remember playing in a Call of Cthulhu game where all of us specifically played characters. I think it was like the 1920s in the United States, and we all played characters who basically had, you know, gender and racial and religious prejudices against us, and we were adventuring trying to stop, the rise of Cthulhu, while you had a bunch of people hating on Jews and blacks and women and the whole nine yards, right? So yeah. Kylie says good luck sexism in D&D. Magic is the great equalizer. DDs of varied genders exist. From the very beginning, I know there are people who fold their arms and like, the gender fluid elves are stupid, and I'm like, have you opened up a Dungeons and Dragons book? Are we looking at the same? Uh, how do I say? Um, androgynistic, sexually androgynistic elves have always been around. I didn't know that. Sergeant Kabukiman is a trauma film. I didn't know that. If you like schlock movies, I love them. Well, I did not know that. I'll have to look that. I'm not real familiar with a lot of the trauma films. Like I'm not a trauma aficionado, but I do love schlocky movies. Some of them can be pretty hilarious. Oh man, I didn't know Sergeant Kabukiman was a real thing, but okay, all right. But yes, a kabuki theater. Uh, I noticed a kabuki theater society might be actually pretty good. I think it would be really awesome. Vince says, "Well, you could include regions where male characters are at a disadvantage. The Drow Society comes to mind for D&D." And like Hailey says, "Yeah, I nearly mentioned Loth too. Yeah, absolutely." Now, I know there are people who are listen in the real world. There are people who have suffered for a very long time because they can't be themselves. Uh, I'm always been one who feels like some of the most dangerous people in the world are people who cannot be themselves freely. serial killers not included, right? But there are people who've been pretending to be something that they're not, and it's like, be yourself, screw me and my prejudices, f me, I'm not important. My discomfort is insignificant to your freedom. So hell's yes. But there are who's to say that the same thing can't exist in a fantasy realm where there are, there are people who are pretending to be something that they don't want to be, and that's not common for them, and listen, even in today's society, with people like kind of placing themselves on a discovering that they are on a this they're moving along the fluidic sliding scale in society. Maybe there are people who've left a like drow society or something like that, which is extremely matriarchal, and said, "Well, I got to get the hell out of here because I can't be me." Kylie says, "Oh my God, I saw the screening for Sergeant Buchanan at the New York Horror Con sometime in the '90s. Wow, you guys are old like I am." Mm-mm-mm. Deadman says Troma had about a dozen comics as well, like Sergeant Kabukiman and Toxic Avenger. E- Eventually, a Toxic Avengers. I heard they're going to reboot that. Why did I hear that they're going to reboot the Toxic Avenger, who was a badass wearing a tutu? I believe it was. I think he was the bully. The bully, they threw him in a tutu and dumped him in toxic waste or something, and then he comes back out. He's got the fighting with the. There was a cartoon about that as well. Kyla's like, not everyone sees the belt of opposite gender as a cursed item. Oh, head slap, groan. Come on, you guys remember it in classic Dungeons and Dragons, the cursed item, the what was it? Was it the girdle of opposite gender or something like that? It was, yeah, there was something. Oh, in Tomb of Horrors. I believe there's a room. I know there's a room in Tomb of Horrors that switches your alignment to the opposite, and I believe there's a room that switches your gender as well. Along with there's also a room that makes you that has either teleports you to the beginning entrance without any of your magic items, and I think there's one that makes you naked. There's a room that makes you naked. Girdle, the girdle of femininity and masculinity. That's it. That's it. They had to call it a girdle too, right? Oh man, how? Yeah, we don't even like to bring that part up, but yeah, it's like it's a cursed item. Really, really. Vince says I just had the image of a druid that fled from society because he's transgender, and only they would accept him if he is learns to shapeshift into whatever he weren't oh and only would accept him as he is, and he learns to shapeshift into whatever he wants to be. Oh shit, yeah. I've always felt like there's a great space for that, to use that, whether like magic allows one to shift through their uh, either not by choice, magic causes someone to shift through genetic shifting. There could be a desire like, hey, my character is part of an arcane tradition in which we're shapeshifters anyway. Why wouldn't we also shapeshift our genders as well? And you could go the opposite way. Maybe there's a society of doppelgangers that don't have a gender, and a member of the doppelgangers left who's like, I'm going to live as one gender. And they're all like, you're weird. Like, why would you choose to live as one gender? Like, because it's part of me. Like, really? Because that's odd. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you there, Kyle. Yeah, that being trans, you see such things a little differently. Yeah. Yeah. Guys, like, yeah, see why I'm upset being late to this one, DBJ? Yep, exactly, exactly, right? I feel it's listen, I was a kid, and when I saw the let me put this back up here with Vince things, the girdle of femininity, masculinity. When I saw that in the game, and I was what, maybe 12, 13, I scratched my head like, I don't get it. Like, really? Like, that's a cursed item? That's a bunch of bullshit. So stupid. But yeah. Oh man. Vince says, I just remembered in Log Horizon and a Sekai anime, there's a character that gets transferred into a fantasy game as his character, and she is female in real life, but male in game. They had to use an item to change her, to change her into a female. There's even we've even seen like there's a comic book called, I think it's called Deviates. The letter D, the letter V, the number 8, and they were like deviants. And there was a female character whose mutant power was to change into a male superhero, and and she was constantly being propositioned by female victims who were like, "Oh, I love you so much," and she was just like, "Could you stay away from me, please? Like, I'm not into you." Because her alter ego as the superhero was male. They had some fun with that. It's a little bit like, that could be a little bit problematic because it was played for a joke. But yeah, I actually like the idea of a faction that maybe there's like, I have to come up with something off the top of my head. Maybe there are a number of heroes in the world, and the people who are want to follow those heroes want to dress and appear as those heroes. And so maybe your big burly barbarian is just like, you know what, there was this female Valkyrie or something like that, and I'm gonna look just like her. I'm gonna go into war. I'm gonna wear the makeup and wear the armor and get my hair done just exactly like that and beat ass just like she did. That's I don't see any problem with that. It makes perfect sense to me. uh He's like laughing my ass off. Yes, Mike's paladin got caught by one of those. At first, he was mad, but then he learned to like his new character. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fun. Getting transferred into your favorite MMO would fuck up a lot of people's genders. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder what that. Okay, Kali, I'm gonna put your emote in here and see what it says. Oh, it came up. How did? Ooh, that's it normally tells you what it says. Mm. Vince is like, the god of war in Dark Eye is female. Hmm. Right? Exactly. I mean, why wouldn't now, mind you, this might be a fashion choice. A guy decides to dress as the female version of their idealized aspect, but this could also be arcane. It would be, how badass would it be for a barbarian to exalt into their most powerful form, and they turn into like this whirlwind woman in black, and like the Raven Queen or something, and he just like, you see his body, like you got this big burly dude, and his body kind of like shrinks down a little bit and is like shoo, 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 and starts like beating ass, and then all of a sudden he's like blood dripping from the weapons and everything, and then transforms back into his male form, and they're like, what the hell? And he's like, yeah. Is her name Scorn? She's called Ronda. Scorn. All right, now something else that can happen in terms of stories, because we're going to get to the end here. Some story encounter elements. So I'm going to just run these off the top of my head very quickly. But we have the classic people getting married, the betrothed, the beautiful princess or prince idea, where someone, two people are supposed to get married, they don't want to, or they pretend like they're going to get married, but they're really attracted to other people. We need the heroes to step in to prevent the coronation or the arrangement or the connection between them. Today, we even have, we're sliding a little bit away from gender, but we also have um, alternate relationship dynamics. We have polyamory and constellation and bisexuality and things of that nature. And there might be, you know, How many times have we seen in real world politics people ruined because of their sexual proclivities? Well, in this world, in this particular setting, it might be pretty normal for something to happen. For example, what is the what's the Elf Quest? Man, my brain is going. In Elf Quest, just before battles, they'd have these giant orgies, and they're pretty. Those little elves in the Elf Quest saga are pretty androgynous. I'm almost definitely sure that Cutter and Sam Skywise had some sexual encounters with each other along with their many female counterparts before a battle. Maybe that's just a general normal thing in this world. And so the player characters might be involved in getting someone to the wedding because they want to be married, or they want to get them away, or they're the classic the young girl that of course doesn't want to be dress in finery and be part of the courts. They wanted us they want to go adventuring and whatnot. The PCs are like, yeah, you're coming with us. Why the hell not? Why the hell wouldn't you? Um, so I think playing and messing around with gender, and even having a how to explain this, even having a society in which the players are expected to be gender fluid might be a problem. For example, there may be a knight's order, and they don't care what gender you are in the knight's order, but you're always expected to have three wives. Like it might be something strange like that, where there is there's a wizard's temple, and every wizard is supposed to have like an apprentice or something like that, and you can never have an apprentice that is your gender. It must be like the opposite gender, because they're like, we're true neutral and we want to make sure everything is balanced. And the person's like, yeah, but this person represents a perfect, you know, apprentice that I want to train. And they're like, nope, you can't. Sorry, wrong gender. Sorry, you got to let them go. Like, yeah, but they're going to be the best wizard. Not according to our standards. Not at all. Vince says, in ancient myth, the Greek Tiresias was transformed into a female for a while and later transformed back. Going back to what Kylie and I kind of mentioned about like the girdle of femininity and masculinity is kind of ridiculous. But um, in a way, a curse from a god or godling, like your character has been transformed, boom, and now you're a different gender. You have to live that way. Might be the prototypical Thor. You have to learn how to be a different person, kind of thing. So maybe a player character is like, hey, I'm playing my male character who's been cursed to be female, to go in this world, even though he still has the same mind, to have to navigate in this world, to learn, so that by the time he gets 20th level, he gets to transform back to himself, and then maybe decides, I'm not going to go back to my old gender. I'm going to stay this way, right? Like it could literally be, I want to play my character who's trying to learn to have an acceptance because they just had their brain was just full of a whole lot of misconceptions or something like that, which I think would be pretty interesting. I mean, we all know role playing games are now embraced as a teaching tool. I would play a character like that. I played plenty of characters I played a prince that was extremely hyper bisexual, and I say hyper because it was a little bit like over sexualized a bit, but yeah, a noble. He was a noble prince, and was just like, hey, all right, we'll do this. Life cleric too one time that was gender fluid. Kylie says, I played a princess who wanted to go adventure with her friends, but daddy was all but you have to be betrothed. Eye roll, right? So and so to unite the kingdoms. Too bad we only played a few sessions. Fleeing has consequence. Exactly. Yeah, the player character that's like, nope, you're getting married, you are going to wear clothing and walk around with your pinky in the air, and they're just like, really, oh my god, I don't want to do this. Or the two people that are like have to be forced to keep the kingdoms together, which is another gender. I was going to bring this up later in the week, but we will. The idea of marriages, and the marriages having to deal with, of course, gender to unite kingdoms because that's how they did it back in the day. You know, yeah. Vince says later he was asked if males or females have more pleasure while having sex. Males or females, huh? Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, yeah. Hell, you guys know I'm a big transhumanist, armchair transhumanist. It, I love the idea of transhumanism because when it gets to the point at which gender is a choice as easy as flipping a switch, it won't really matter anymore. And I love that. Vince says, I think in D&D, Elminster also used to be female for a while. I would probably say that even more than Kanan, probably as the great balancer, I believe, is probably like that. And any wizard worth their salt would absolutely positively either, I could see wizards either getting rid of their gender altogether, being like asexual, or flowing through their genders based on whatever arcane celestial events or something like that. Yeah. Oh hell yeah. DB says, "Oh, DJ, believe me, being the wrong gender can feel like a curse." I can't. I absolutely positively can't speak on that. So you know me, but then again, you know me. Like you're it's just an embrace altogether. And I feel like there is a, if I can get on my soapbox a little bit, which is why I wanted to bring this up this week. I'm not against talking about hard subjects, but I'm ignorant of a lot of subjects as well. So I'd rather talk them out, be corrected, get other voices. And I cannot stand the idea that we have very harsh, violent, you know, just evil gatekeepers in our community, because the role playing game community has always been the safe space for the outcasts. And I feel like there's people who are just like, I hate the fact that we're talking about diversity in gaming, and I'm going like, what, you hate the fact that other people are imagining themselves to to be their idealized selves? Like how do you dislike somebody else's other imagination? That has no effect on you, right? It's just the world didn't crash and burn when Paizo made a black woman with cornrows as a paladin, right? The world, the books didn't burn, the tilting of the earth didn't get worse, storms didn't get, you know what I mean? It's just a piece of art. It's a piece of literature. There's some words written in there, and if there's an opportunity to allow people to either become their idealized self, or maybe somebody like me who's like, you know what? I'd like to play something different. I want to know what that's like, even for just a short amount of time. Or maybe there's people who are like, I never even thought about being different. Maybe here's an opportunity to kind of walk in somebody else's shoes, because it's almost like it's like a dream of sorts. Like, hey, I don't want to be someone different now, but if I was born different, what would my life be like? Right? And then you get to be this other person, and to be the hero. I think that's the other part we're missing when it comes to diversity in gaming, is that it's not just that we want to be inclusive. It's being inclusive and being your best self. We all want to play characters like that. So why would you want to stop somebody else being that way? It makes no sense. Sorry. I put my soapbox away because I think soap used to come in boxes. Anyway, Deadman says the webcomic Misfile has a character whose gender swapped, originally male, became female, because an angel accidentally misfiled his life from one filing cabinet to another in heaven. Yep. Yeah. Actually, that would be kind of cool if, like, someone says, like, what's the half orc capability where you come back with one hit point? Like, someone could say, all right, here's how I want to describe it. When my character, quote unquote, dies, I come back, like my spirit comes back into somebody else that's completely different than I am, different gender, different race, and everything. And every time my character is back, you're just like, oh no, not again. I would let somebody play that. Oh man. Vince says, yeah, it sure does. I know a guy who used to be female and he is going through a lot of shit. Being Christian is hard sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Kyle says, you are excellent, an excellent representative as always, DBJ. No worries from me. Your emotional intelligence is simply too high. I don't know about that. I don't know about, I, all I know is that I can say that there are things I don't know and I'm willing to learn. And I think that's half the battle. I think I could go further, but I don't know where further is. Right. So, whatever. Like, for example, okay. Um, it uh, all right, I'll default to the one thing because I know there's something else that came to mind. So now you guys know. Ooh, gotta get it out of here. All right, so you guys know in Dungeons and Dragons, in Tasha's Cauldron, and they're actually pushing this forward a little bit, where you can. They are removing the stereotypical stat modifiers to each race so that you basically can play, you can move the stat mods anywhere you want to. Everybody knows in fifth edition, you get a +1 and a +2. I think there's even a lot of third parties that are going, you get three +1s, you get to put them anywhere, you get to put a +2 wherever you would like. Essentially, right? You can't put more than a +2 in any one stat. And then you get to you get to pick and choose like some stat abilities like dark vision. Everybody loves themselves some dark vision or whatever, and so on. And some of the pushback has been like, well, that means that you're going to have smart orcs or you're going to have strong elves or whatever. And it's like, well, sure, because sometimes we I want to play the character that's the exception to the rule. And I think since we're going to talk about gender this week, that there's the idea that yeah, like my character is the exception to the rule. I'm the special snowflake. Now it doesn't necessarily mean I'm the only one, but maybe I am. Yeah. Vince says, I think making an effort is the most important part, not taking the easy route. Yeah, I tend not to do that. Stupidly sometimes. Yeah, I sometimes go down a rabbit hole like, why did I do this? Oh my god, why did I do this? He says, totally agree that bias is why I come here. Yeah, yeah, Deuce, thank you so much for that. I want a safe space, but that doesn't mean it's going to be safe talking about it either. It's going to come up. Believe you me, it's going to come up. But I'll shut down. I will shut down the "you're wrong, I'm right" kind of thing, and be like, no, what do you have to say about it? I I don't know, man. Part of me is I go back to a little conversation Deadman and I had. Like, part of me kind of thinks that I probably could do like a political show or something, but I get too frustrated because I think a lot of it's just idiocy. Vince says, I did a I am racist check made in America a while ago, and it showed that I am racist towards black people, but in my opinion, it only checked my familiarity with black or white faces. And in Germany, blacks are relatively rare to encounter in comparison to America. But that goes without. I don't. I might have to challenge you on that, Vince, because not having an experience is not the same thing as having the experience and choosing to be away, right? Like, uh, I've never traveled to a foreign country. Well, I mean, I've been in other places, but I've never been immersed into another culture, so I can't speak on it. So I probably have a ton of misconceptions about places around the world, and I don't even know it. I I'll get there and go, oh wow, get to, in the United States we tend to think of every other place as nearly third world countries, and I'd go there and go, it's really metropolitan. I'm a little surprised. I mean, I'm sure, I guarantee you that's going to happen. I think if you're not exposed to something, that's not the same thing. But I don't know, dude. You stop by here, and you've always been cool with me, so I don't know. I kind of, I think we all can check ourselves. I think it's a healthy thing. So, all right, man, we'll talk about that maybe later. Hmm. Let's see. Kylie posts racism, sexism in society affects all of us and harms everyone's psyche. It is so insidious. It is now. It is insidious in many ways. It's the what we here call microaggressions. It's that part of it. D&D is better off with endless factions wielding untold power. It all it takes is just us using just a little bit more brain power and go. It's more it's not by race or sex or something. Most of the time, these things come about by faction, and some factions are bigger than others. We know this in politics, right? People get drawn into politics by gravity, and they don't even want to get drawn in. They're just like fuck another political argument or something, right? You get drawn into it, but yeah. Vince says I personally would not say I'm racist. It was really irritating. It's well, remember a lot of people on what's the whole big thing like today it's like everyone wants to be woke and try to get other people to be woke and all this kind of stuff, woke culture and whatnot, and there are people who are upset about woke culture. What I think is really happening is there are today now there are people who don't know how to handle legacy guilt, right? I don't expect I live in a country where they basically had genocide against the people who lived here. On one hand, I don't want to leave, right? Like, but on the other hand, I completely accept the fact that my existence was based on the genocide of another people, and my people brought here enslaved. I mean, basically, the United States was just like, if we could get some people from India and maybe there's probably another dozen other countries, we'd have the whole collection of people that were used and abused to make this country, right? And there are it's difficult to gauge the legacy guilt because on one hand you have people who are like, holding up the middle finger like F you, I don't feel guilty about it at all. It has nothing to do with me. Don't bother me with it. Where there are others I think that are overcome with the like the holy shit, like I am literally living my life based on the evils of so many people behind me, and how do I deal with it? And I think as human beings in a society, I don't know, this is a terrible way to describe it, our empathic fuel meter is overflowing, right? And it's like I can only be feel empathy for so many things, and I'm getting bombarded by everything in the world, right? I don't know. I don't know. It's just yeah, yeah, Vince. Yeah, hey, from somebody from Germany, I can't even imagine. Like, I'm going to make a joke here. It's a terrible one, but I got to say it because it's off the top of my head. Kevin Smith had an interview. Kevin Smith. He does these or has done these long comedic styled interviews and whatnot. And he was on stage talking about the fact that he went over to Germany, and it was he's talking about how he was uncomfortable about the fact that he's like, I love all my German friends and I want to see them, but he's like, I like kind of wanted to see the concentration camps, and then nobody wanted to bring it up. And he's like, what do I do here? Right. And I'm just like, oh shit. Like I can't even imagine. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are just like, please don't, can we just not even talk about this anymore? Hey, Kylie. Yeah, I hear you, Kylie. Like, I was DBJ's points. I promise. I get it. Thank you. Yeah. Vince is like, well, most Germans are chill about concentration camps. Yeah. Hey, we got our own here. We just don't talk about them. Vince says most of us go there during school. I did not know that. I did not know that. See, I learned something every day. Well, that's let's cut that off. Maybe we'll talk about that. Ooh, that would be I won't do that next week. I won't do it because that's going to go too deep. But it would be interesting. I sorry, legacy. The idea of the idea of people of a society today in a role playing game, living with the legacy of those that came from before, and understand and knowing that difference, right? Like the player, like a society where they've embraced tieflings and dragonborn today, understanding they came from a society where there are still people who are still alive who remember where they went to battle with dragons and evil fiendish creatures that spilled out of the nether realms to do battle, and that tension that's there. Like the people born today are like, oh, they're my best friends, and their parents are like, you better not be their friend. They're fucking, oh, you better kill them. Oh my god. Oh, if I see a dragonborn stuff in my house, oh, your grandfather died from a dragon attack. And they're like, yeah, but that has nothing to do with today. Oh, yes, it does. Vince is like, yeah, we learned a ton about World War II, the Second World War. Vince is like, holy shit. If I would time travel into 1930s in Germany, it would be horrifying. Yeah, we got to talk about that. All right, guys. Tomorrow is, of course, Trope Tuesday. Of course, we're going to talk about a lot of tropes, gender tropes, and a lot of it's comedic, with the butt of the joke being for a mess put on the people who don't deserve it. But there's a lot of that. There's the Mrs. Doubtfire, kind of things. There's some tropes in there, but we're going to talk about it and kind of it weave it through our role playing games. Um, yeah, like Kylie. Yeah, like Kylie says. Yeah, wait, Vincent, you didn't just bury and ignore your bad history like the U.S. has done. Oh, we've got piles and piles of bad history. We just America, like, wait. A good example is the stone that slaves stood on while they were being sold next to the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, city I was born and raised in. Yep. But we're gonna end it on that. Nah, the U.S. would not let us. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like to wave our finger. Everybody likes to do that. Yeah. Which I don't know. Bring that's a good. I think there's some fuel to be had in there, at least for creatively doing things. I think there's some fuel in it. But anyway, guys, we're going on not a little bit, quite a bit too long. But thank you guys very much for being part of the show. I understand that this isn't the kind of subject matter some people might want to look at. Whatever, I guarantee you, probably in the YouTube comments, people are just probably going to look at the title and blast it or whatever. But whatever, that's going to happen. But I want us to have a longer conversation. And maybe there might be some places people might go and go, oh, I didn't really think about that. Maybe I will include that in my game. Or I didn't realize that 87% of all my NPCs were dudes, that kind of thing. So anyway, guys, oh yeah, like Wayne. Ooh, I want to fix the ladies' man chaser bard. Yeah, yeah. Every little boy, regardless of age, likes to play. Grr, yep. Yeah. The bard with hot pants. Yep. Like, ooh, running around with their. I just imagine like the bard going like running around with their hips thrusting forward, like yeah, 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 yeah. I hate that. I hate that so much, dude. I'm with you. Thanks, Kylie. Yeah, thanks. I'm pretty down with the subject, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for representing, and I really appreciate it. I don't, I do love you here being here. I would love a lot more of your input if you don't mind. Yeah, I roll for seduction. I roll. God, I hated that. Oh man, I wanna seduce the dragon. Seriously, another one of these things. And people wonder why it took so long for ladies to get into role playing. There's a ton of ladies out there, and now, of course, now that we have a lot of ladies, now there's a lot of pronies out there that are like, I want to play my character the way I want to. Sorry, I used the word prony for pronouns to cover all the pronouns in between. I apologize for that. It's a good thing. I mean it in the best. possible way. Sorry about that. But anyway, for all my pronies out there that are like, look, I want to play my character the way I want to play without having to worry about people making fun of me or without me having to hide who I am, or maybe there's just somebody who's like, I don't want to be judged either way. I just want to play this other person. Can I play this other person in this game and get away from my own life and then get the hell out? Yeah. Uh, nah, you're gonna roll. Yeah, you're gonna roll for it. I hear you. Anyway, guys, I'll see you guys later. Yeah, you're Tommy two times now. Yeah, you Tommy two timed. Here's that old argument. Yeah, like, but I got the ranks. I don't have to be able to do a backflip to roll athletics. Yeah, then you got to tell them like, sure, but you can't athletically jump to the moon either, right? So I don't care what kind of game you're playing. I'm not going to let you, backflip away from a nuclear explosion, and you're not going to be able to seduce a dragon. So get out of here. Although maybe that might work in a nasty kind of way. Yeah. Oh man. See, the emojis are coming up. Maybe that's just Twitch. Twitch puts the words of what the emoji means in restream, but on YouTube it's allowing the emoji to show up. So okay, maybe it's improved a little bit. All right, Wayne. I'll see you later. Wayne's important. He's got to go watch Realm Smiths, and I need to go listen in on over there anyway. All right, guys. You guys are see you. Have